Well, we've played 4-3-3 at this football club for a while, so I'd probably say that. That doesn't mean to say that that's not flexible. It is. There's ways of doing it, ways of slightly tweaking it. If you play two deep midfielders, does it become a 4-2-3-1? Play two high midfielders, and your two wide forwards are further back. Is it a 4-1-4-1? There's all different ways of doing it, and it's subtle variations. That doesn't mean to say we don't play three at the back. We've played 4-4-2, which is different. So you've got to pick what's right for the players, and pick what's right to win a game of football.
And which is the most common formation that you come across in League One?
I think this season it's probably 4-3-3. Last season it was probably 3-5-2 in League Two. Again, I think it's a bit of a modern take on a system that we've all seen before. And like I said, there's variants and variations to every system. Again, there's no right and wrong. You just got to pick a system that suits your players and suits the team, or tries to win a game against a team that you come up against.
The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
So hello, very warm welcome to the VAR Show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to continue interviews, and we have the head coach of Crewe Alexandra, Mr. David Artell, with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to first thank David for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I'd like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. We're all safe and well. It's a crazy time at the minute, certainly in England. We've got to make the best of a bad situation, but thankfully the government have allowed us to play football, and hopefully that'll continue. We want to see fans back in the stadiums, but obviously only when it's safe to do so. So there's a bit of work to do yet, but hopefully we'll be able to return to normal pretty soon.
I'll ask a very maybe it's a very, very foolish question to begin with. Why football?
It's all I've ever known. I left school at 16 after having done my GCSEs, and 11 days later I was doing an apprenticeship in a football club. It's as simple as that, learning the trade, learning the craft. I was fortunate enough to be offered an apprenticeship at Rotherham, and the rest is history, I suppose. I think it's most young boys' dream, and I was fortunate to have been afforded that opportunity and worked hard to maintain it.
So now I'll talk of your playing career. And you have played in a lot of various teams across England. So when you look back, how do you look back at your playing career?
I think the greatest satisfaction I got through my playing career was the longevity and the number of games. I've had a few promotions and one relegation. But the greatest, I was never blessed. I was never the greatest footballer. I equate myself to a jobbing actor, an actor that sort of goes from one sitcom and then to a drama, then to a serial and what have you. So I was never the best footballer in the world, but what I did have was a big heart and a fantastic work ethic, and that gave me a career. And like I say, that the proudest achievement was the length of time I was in the game, really.
And you're like many of me, I have seen many footballers, come out and they say like they fall out of love from the game, the longer they are in the game. Did you ever face that, or did you ever consider that?
No. I have to say, I think I can understand why they say what they say, because when you first come into this profession, you're a fan, and it's all based on raw emotion. Whereas when you've been in the game for a period of time, dependent on yourself really. That emotion can subside if you've been exposed or experienced bad situations. Thankfully, I haven't experienced too many of them. And I look back and I go, I don't want to diminish people's dreams and aspirations and take away that raw emotion of players or staff. I think that's important that you help feed their dreams and keep them alive, if you like, because I have seen it. Where people are on the wane and are falling out of love with the game because of whatever factors that might be in play. So I can understand why you've asked the question, but for me, it's never happened, and thankfully and hopefully it never will.
And I want to ask, you have been involved in some capacity or the other from I think mid 1990s till now, and the game has changed quite a lot in terms of rules and even wider how you play and how everyone plays. In your opinion, how has the game evolved?
It's definitely quicker. There's definitely a greater physical element to it in terms of more high-speed running and greater distances covered. In terms of tactical stuff, I think all the tactical stuff is very cyclical. We see a lot of three at the back now. Well, I can remember watching the Italian '90 World Cup, and Bobby Robson, the England manager, was playing three at the back then. He wasn't seen as a revolutionist back then because it had been done before him. So these things tend to go in cycles and are cyclical. Obviously, you get people like Pep Guardiola he's a real pioneer, really, and shakes things up and adds different elements to it. But from a tactical point of view, it tends to be just returning in a different guise. I think the biggest change that has evolved over a number of years from when I first started is it's definitely quicker. There's definitely a greater physical element to it. And I think it's obviously the laws have changed. There's certain, we all know about VAR. And I think that's needed because, like I said, the game's got quicker. So that for me is the biggest difference.
Like you said, you are blessed to have managers, who are pioneers in their own rights. You have Guardiola, you have Klopp, to name a few. So, and they can do that maybe because they have the luxury of having provided the best players in the world or whoever they want. So does it come down, does it filter down, even maybe of Crewe Alexandra fan, seeing Liverpool play that, do they also subconsciously expect you to play that way? Does it happen?
Well, we'll always try and play football. This football club, whatever, I'm the manager, we don't whack it. It's interesting that I think if you analyse Liverpool, they're a fantastic team. They are fairly direct. I don't mean the long ball. Please don't. I don't want a sack full of letters from Liverpool fans that says I'm saying Liverpool are a long ball team. But they are fairly direct. They get the ball up there quick. They've got two flying fullbacks, and once they're up there, they're extremely dangerous. Whereas Man City are a completely different team. So, the point is, I think you'd say both teams are footballing teams, but there's a massive contrast between styles. With us, we play a certain way. There's definitely a way of we go about it. And the fans, if we start whacking the ball up to a big tall striker and get the ball wide and just whack it in the box, I think there will be some disgruntled fans because they come to expect a certain way in a certain style, but that's not a bad thing. You don't run from that pressure, you embrace that pressure. I think if anyone runs away from pressure, I think they're running away from the challenge. So I'm quite happy for the fans of this football club to have high expectations of it's well with me anyway.
No, the reason I asked that is because I see many of the former players also saying that many of the keepers are not comfortable playing out from the back, and probably they do not possess that skill. Probably it was not taught to them when it was not practiced enough, and they make a lot of mistakes. So, and is that something like you have a pressure, like, okay, you need to build out from the back, so there's a pressure subconsciously on all the teams to play out from the back?
I think possibly. I think there has been more. I think the change in the rule for the goal kicks has helped. Definitely, where you can stand in the area. I think that's a real positive rule change for football. I think it's one that they've definitely got right. In terms of, pressure, if we make a mistake trying to play the right way that leads to a goal for the opposition, yes, it's my job to tell them where they went wrong, whether that be one player, two players, three players, whatever. But they won't get hugely criticised because they're trying to do it the right way. If we conceded a goal by whacking it up front, second balls, then they're just playing through us, that'd be worse. The ball started, their attack started further from our goal, and it might not be as obvious an error. But that's, for me, running away from the challenge, running away from how we go about our business, how we play, the philosophy, if you want, for a better term. So, the players, if they do make mistakes trying to do the right thing, I think it's important as a manager that you don't put more pressure on them for the next time you're asking them to do the same kind of move and start the moves off. You've got to take that pressure off them to go, fine, you've made a mistake, be better, and this is the reason why you made a mistake, but so don't do it again, and we're going to practice more, and and then you've got to trust that you're coaching the players' ability to retain the information and practice will make them a better player, and they do make less mistakes, because if you do that, then you're improving the team and you're improving the way you play.
Of course, and you moved into coaching after your playing career. Was that something you always planned, or was it something spontaneous?
I have to say, it wasn't something I always planned. I'm so grateful that I did. Obviously, I'd done my coaching badges and I'd done what I needed to do to afford myself that opportunity. I'm not a great networker. I don't particularly ring people up all the time just for a chat, because I don't really feel comfortable talking about myself, which tends to happen when you phone people up. But there's a networking thing there, and I've got to be better at that. So I don't think I ever thought that might happen, that the coaching pathway might happen, because there's a large part of it is who you know, not what you know. But thankfully, I was offered an opportunity to coach in the academy here, and that's started the ball rolling for my second career, really.
And like you mentioned, like you started the academy and slowly you went all the way up, and now you're the first team manager. So how important is that process? Because like generally you see a lot of young coaches also like wanting to directly go and become the head coach. So you went through a proper part where you went to the academy and probably you learned your trade on the way. So how important is that process?
Huge. People become footballers having kicked a ball at 4 and start becoming footballers at 17 if they're lucky, probably 18, 19, 20. And they've understood all the different facets of the game over the previous 13, 14, 15 years. And some former footballers think that they can go straight from playing football at 32, 33, 34, straight into a manager's job or a fairly lofty, high-up position in an academy. It just doesn't work like that. You get so much more coaching in a group of under-9s than you do in an under-16s group. You have to teach them differently. You have to speak to them differently. They are absolutely enthused by you just being there. Whereas under-16s are grumpy teenagers. They want information in a different way. You've got to be a bit less humour. But this is all part of learning how to coach, learning how to speak to people, understanding what feedback you're getting. And then you can work up towards 17, 18, 19, 20, however older people and men, so that you've got all them sort of facets of coaching in your tool bag. So you go, I can remember that because I had the same with under 13 and under 18, under 16, under 9, and that stands you in great stead when you come up against it, because as sure as eggs are eggs, you come up against it. Whatever it is, all right, I'm telling this 33-year-old this way, but I can remember that under 14 didn't understand it this way either. So I'm going to have to show him this way and see if that works. And that only comes through practice. I can't emphasize enough how much you need to get out and coach in the middle.
And you said maybe you pick up some stuffs on the way, which probably would be helpful for you personally. Did you have any particular moment that you used later on when you were in charge of the main senior squad?
I don't think any one single thing. I can't say there's one single thing. I don't, it's a bit like saying it was the one standout moment in my junior career, if you like, before I become a pro footballer that stood out, and there wasn't. And it's the same in the coaching thing. There's no shortcut. There's just a number of hours. Get out there, keep coaching, practice. And if you do that, then you've got a chance.
Of course. And I'll talk of your playing career. Do you miss playing?
Yes. The best job in the world. This is just the second best job.
So what are the major difference for you, from moving from playing into management?
You have less impact on any game being a manager than you do as a player. As a player, you can affect it greatly. As a manager, you can't. Not to the extent you can as a player. Obviously, you can make substitutions and give instructions, but actually, as a player, you are the one that can directly affect it. That takes a lot of getting used to. It's different when there's pressure on as well. So that's one of the big differences between taking an under 9s team and taking a first team. When there's pressure on it, it is different, or pressure on the result. So there's those differences. I think obviously the big difference is that the ball moves faster. People move faster the older you get. In terms of between, I think that, like I said, you're still in that dressing room environment. You're still trying to influence people. You're still trying to make them better. The greatest joy that I get from doing this job is seeing people develop and trying to help them in their lives, in their careers. And if you do that, then you've got a chance.
Of course, and I want to ask in terms of coaching, at least people these days, managers, they are more vocal about being the head coach or the manager. Which one do you personally identify yourself as?
Manager. I think as a head coach, I think by giving yourself that title, if you give yourself that title, you are immediately absolving yourself of some responsibility. I'm not saying that's wrong or right, I'm just saying that's what I believe to be true. If you are given that title by the football club, when you go into a role, they are telling you haven't got the responsibilities of recruitment, of a bit of sports science, of medical. I'm not saying that I have as a manager, but I can definitely greatly influence all them areas. And I think that's the big difference. As a first team coach, you are just the coach. As a manager, you get to oversee recruitment, you get to oversee sports science and medicine. There's all them different elements. And as a manager, that's your sort of top of the tree. That's not necessarily an ego thing. I just think I think that's a very subtle but a big difference.
You mentioned like sports science, especially these days, has been given a lot of importance, especially in the past decade or so. So as a manager, how important it is for you to be aware of what's happening and have a control of that?
I have a meeting every morning with our head of sports science and medicine, Dr. Liam Anderson, who's terrific, and he brings me all the information from his department. And if I ask any questions, he's got the answers, and between us, we then, go through each player, what they need, what they don't need, and if I've got a problem with anything, I relay that to him, and he goes back and makes sure it happens. It's not although it sort of sounds like as a manager you become a bit of a dictator. That's not the case here. It's certainly not with me. It's a flat hierarchy. But at the same time, you do need some chiefs to the Indians, if you like, and all these heads of department. We all get round in the morning and sit and talk and plan the day and work his way through it. And I think if you've got good people who know the stuff, then you've got a great chance of coming up with the right answers more often than not.
And you're like talking of current affairs, there's a global pandemic going on and it has affected everyone. And how has it been for you, like professionally in terms of the club, and how you wanted to maybe, it has affected your ideology, in terms of the team?
Well, obviously you can't predict if somebody's going to get this highly virulent virus. Anybody can catch it at any time from anyone, and you can't predict that. You just got to hope that they don't get serious symptoms and they recover well. So that can throw a span in the works, but that's only the same as somebody getting injured the day before a game or midweek in training. You have to learn to accept it, and there's no point, crying over something that you can't control. You just got to get on with it. And I think if you do that, then you've got to make sure the players are all right, give them all the support they need. But we've got to make sure that the game's moving on and time's ticking away, and you've just got to dust yourself off if you think you've been dealt a bit of a raw hand and crack on.
And also, I was reading the news, and you were not very satisfied with the games being postponed again and again. So what is your view on that?
The first game I can understand exactly why the game got called off against Oxford. The second game was called off for non-COVID reasons, in my view. But that's for others to decide. That's my opinion. I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash eventually, and we just want to play games of football in a safe manner. And we felt last Tuesday we could play in a safe manner, which was proven when we got all the test results back. So it is what it is. It's gone. It's chip shop paper, and we'll keep playing the games until we're told otherwise.
And you're staying with COVID, even if the games do go ahead, it will be probably behind closed doors. How much of that has an influence on the team's, performance?
I think it can do. I don't think anyone. I think the Bundesliga did a big study because they were the first sort of major league to come back, and I think the home advantage was lost or was certainly diminished. There's a greater number of away victories, so there's always that to consider. But I think for me, that anything such as behind closed doors games or full house or next to no crowd or lots of fans booing or lots of fans cheering, for me it's just a mindset. All these situations are all situations that players have faced, and if you let it get inside your head, then it'll affect your performance. If you don't, or if you use it in a positive way, it'll aid your performance. And I think that's as simple as it needs to be, really.
And you're staying with current affairs, there was this project Big Picture which was rejected, rightly so. What was your view on it?
I think from a League One football club's point of view, I don't think you can throw anything out. I think you've got to consider everything. We're quite fortunate. We're a very stable football club. We don't need to go cap in hand to anyone. But we all know there's plenty of football clubs up and down the country that are really struggling financially. And nobody wants to have another Bury or Macclesfield on their hands. I don't think anyone does. So when Project Big Picture come round the corner or come into the newspapers, it was certainly worth considering. I think it's obviously been thrown out. I'm not saying that's wrong, but what it's done, if it's not done anything, it's stimulated a conversation and it's put the wheels in motion for hopefully something to happen. Now that can only be a good thing, because like I said, there's some football clubs up and down the country that are really struggling.
Of course, like some points there, I think were good. Like I think certain percentage of the TV money coming down the pyramid. So I think those were like some good points in the.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was plenty of good stuff in there. I think the Premier League, obviously, they didn't want to get rid of one member, one vote. They obviously didn't want to give the power to the Big Six, and that's fully understandable. Whether the Premier League will, discuss whether they will, sort of agree on different terms or not, we'll wait to see. I know time's running out for some football clubs because fans are still not coming back, and seems like they're not going to come back for a while. But hopefully, something gets sorted for those clubs that need the finances, and I suppose the real easy way of resolving this is getting fans back in the stadiums. But even then, I think there was certainly an unsustainable culture in the EFL. It's certainly amongst Championship clubs, and even there's for some League One and even some League Two clubs. Now that's dangerous. It's got to change. The EFL can't tell anyone how to run their football club, but we've heard some crazy stories in our time of players being on thousands and thousands of pounds when you know that the club can't afford it. So there's got to be a few more checks and balances from the governing body. Whether that's an independent regulator or not, I don't know. But I think the fact that everyone's talking about it can only be a good thing.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? I think you did your postgraduate in biomedical science. What was that like? Why did you do that?
Well, I did an undergraduate degree in forensic biology. Then I started my master's in biomedical science, and it was just a continuation of the undergrad degree, really, that I started when I was 23, I think it was. So yeah, it was extremely interesting, all about the body. More on a cellular level than the big structures, your muscles and stuff. Bones, it was more what's in the bones and what's in the muscles, and the ATP system and stuff like that. How your cells generate energy and stuff like that, the energy systems. So it was all really interesting stuff, and it was all related, in some way, some level to what I do now.
So do you think when you're hiring, or when you were hiring, or when you will hire maybe in the future a sports scientist, you'll be very skeptical because you already have some knowledge of it?
Yeah, I think that happens. I think when I speak to the sports science, the head of that department and our first team physio, I think there's an understanding of what's required and what's not required through sort of personal experiences and seeing other players injured and whatever injuries I've had through my career, and also obviously the academic stuff. So when we have pre-season and Liam's talking about the glycolytic system and the aerobic and anaerobic system, I have got some understanding of that, and it does help. It does help. It's easier for him to get buy-in from me as a football manager, I suppose, because I know that's the truth, if you like, and I understand how it works. So I'd say it can only help, stuff like that.
Of course, and I'll get back to more footballing in terms of tactics. And as a coach, do you have any coach or coaches whom you look up to or are influenced by?
I think I often tell other people that I'm a magpie. I don't mean I'm black and white and got wings. I mean that they steal things from other people. They nick ideas. So I don't sort of say, "Oh, he's absolutely brilliant." I go, "Oh, that bit's good off him, and that bit's good off that other coach, and that bit over there is good off him." And that doesn't necessarily mean it's just football either. I think when you go to other sports, you pick up some real good stuff from other sports. So there's no necessarily one person that I go, "Wow, he's absolutely outstanding." I just try and pick out the best bits from others and put it into my own words, if you like.
Definitely, did your playing career have an influence on your coaching career? Like what philosophy you want to play?
Yes, 100%. I think you pick up stuff from other managers, good and bad, other players, good and bad, different football clubs, good and bad, and you have to, you plot my own way, if you like, from what I believe to be the best bits of all that I've experienced and encountered, both personally and when you've gone and sourced it and researched it and heard anecdotal stuff, so that you try and get, the whole picture and exactly what you want to do and where you want to be. Because I think that's, that gives you the greatest, because then I believe in everything I'm saying, if you like, and that's an important facet of being a manager.
Like being a manager, how important it is, like to have people around you who will not basically say yes to you everything.
Huge. It's huge. I don't want that. I don't mind healthy debate. You don't want staff falling out. You want healthy debate, and all the staff at this football club know that they can contradict, challenge anything I say or do, and that goes for any of the other staff. They've got to be able to justify it. Why do you not think that? Why do you think him and not him? Why are you saying that? What gives you reasons? That's not because we don't trust each other, but if somebody's got such a strong feeling because of what they've seen or why they've seen it or whatever my case may be, then that gets taken on board. Whether that's which player plays, what we do in training, who does what, whether that's staff roles, player roles, whatever it might be, because I haven't got all the answers. It's not all about me at all. It never has been about me. It's about the players. And as a group of staff, we've got to come up with the right answers.
Like ideally speaking, if you are given an option to choose a formation which you would like to implement in your philosophy, which formation would that be?
Well, we've played 4-3-3 at this football club for a while, so I'd probably say that. That doesn't mean to say that that's not flexible. It is. There's ways of doing it, ways of slightly tweaking it. Does it be, if you play two deep midfielders, does it become a 4-2-3-1? Play two high midfielders, and your two wide forwards are further back. Is it a 4-1-4-1? There's all different ways of doing it, and it's subtle variations. That doesn't mean to say we don't play three at the back. We've played 4-4-2, which is different. So you've got to pick what's right for the players, and pick what's right to win a game of football.
And like, which is the most common formation that you come across in League One?
I think this season it's probably 4-3-3. Last season it was probably 3-5-2 in League Two. Again, I think it's a bit of a modern take on a system that we've all seen before. And like I said, there's variants and variations to every system. Again, there's no right and wrong. You just got to pick a system that suits your players and suits the team, or tries to win a game against a team that you come up against.
Definitely. And I'll ask you two final questions here. And the first of the two is, again, it might be difficult. If you had to choose one moment from your career, which one would that be? Like, which you are the most proud of?
Most proud of? I don't know. I think obviously winning at Wembley with Crewe was a fantastic achievement in the playoffs. I think managing Crewe with the third lowest budget in League Two, finishing top of the league when the season finished, was a terrific achievement. So them two will be up there. I think getting promoted into the Championship with Rotherham when I was 19 was an unbelievable achievement. So them successes are always fond memories, and I think they're the sort of headline, if you like, for years and years of hard work. And I think it's the hard work that I stuck at it when some others wouldn't. I think that's probably the proudest bit. The fact that whether it be injuries or managers not liking me or saying I'm not good enough, you stuck at it and I proved people wrong. I think that's probably what I'm most proud of.
And on that note, I'll ask you one final question. So, do you have any piece of advice for young coaches who are just starting out?
Practice. Practice, 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 practice. And when you think you've done enough practice, go and practice again and keep practicing. Doesn't matter what age group. Don't think because you're coaching under 16s you're a better coach than under 9s. Don't work like that. They're just different. You get coached in a different way. Go and practice all the time. Even if it's a local Sunday League team, go and practice. Because if you don't practice, you don't get better. It's the same in football. If you want to become a footballer, what should you do? Practice all the time, as much as you can. Same in coaching. Study the game. Try and watch as much football. But don't watch it, study it. Why are they playing that way? Why are the other team playing that way? What are they trying to do? You'll get better quickly.
Of course. So I'll sneak in one question. Like, if you were given an option to sign one of these two players in the next transfer window, who would they be, Ronaldo or Messi?
Ronaldo.
Why?
Because he has done it in different countries, under different managers, in different cultures. So there's less question marks over whether he would settle in the football club wherever I'm at and adapt to a way of playing that I would like him to play. Whereas Messi has only been at one club. I'm not saying he's a bad player, by the way, because I don't think there's very little to choose. Whereas Messi is, he's had a team really built around him, which is not a criticism of him at all. He's only ever been in one country, obviously bar his homeland, and he's got used to that way of life. You know, the question is, could he do it on a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke? I'm sure he could, but would he like it? We've seen plenty of players, you know. Angel Di Maria, for example, didn't like it in Manchester. Always rains. You know, yeah, it does rain. You best get used to it. Now, Messi's from Argentina. It rains in Argentina. I can't see it being a problem. But there's still a question mark. Whereas we know Ronaldo can do it in this country. And that, you know, if I was spending millions and millions and millions, I'd want to be safe in the knowledge that he'd come and be able to do it in my team. And that's the only reason why. Got nothing to do with football really, because they're both.
Of course, and on that note, David, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for your season up ahead, and hope you can take Crewe Alexandra higher up the pyramid, and you can play in the Premier League maybe hopefully one day, and we can talk again soon. Thank you so much once again. Take care, stay safe. Bye.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Player-wise, it would have to be Steven Gerrard, just because again before he became a journalist, you know, he was someone I just admired massively in terms of the absolute complete footballer. I think if you were trying to like make a footballer in a factory, it would be Steven Gerrard, someone who, you know, I think JB Carragher summed it up best once when he said, you know, Steven Gerrard's biggest strength is he doesn't have any weaknesses.
The stadium. I don't see really need to do that, mainly such a big spending, but it's true that it would be a fantastic stadium. That's not bad, but you have to be careful, and mainly at this moment when we are going to face a very difficult time.